Hello and welcome to Code with JV, AI Snapshot number 6. This is where I go through just some recent happenings in AI and add some light commentary. I've got a browser full of tabs. Let's jump into it. Stability AI, the people behind Stable Diffusion, the open source text-to-image generator, they've announced a new model and it's a banger. A lot of people are saying it's up there with Midjourney. It's got a whole bunch of features which make it easy to use, and it's increased its functionality a bunch. It can make good pictures, but from a user point of view, it's simpler language. You don't need to spend all this time learning how to prompt it in an arcane way to get what you want out of it. Just say what you want and it's more likely to do it. They've also made it easier to fine tune. This means that the ecosystem providing a whole bunch of plugins just to make it better and interesting and more focused on the niche you care about is going to be supported. And as an open source project, people are just building on top of this rapidly already. I feel like their announcement missed the beat on the most important thing though. You can put text in there now. If you've ever tried to put text, it just doesn't work, or it didn't work. And now you can. So maybe you can make logos with it. You can run it locally, but also they've got a commercial offering where you can just go in, pay some money, get access to the tool. It's got a whole bunch of features in there. So ClipDrop is Stability AI's commercial offering for people who just want to have an easy website to work with. Just after the Llama 2 release, they released a model called Free Willy 2. They renamed it to Stable Beluga. I guess they didn't want to have it as a movie title for very long. This is trained on an Orca-style dataset. Orca was the model where it got 1 million prompts from GPT-4 and 4 million from GPT 3.5 of explain your thinking to do this task, and use that to fine-tune a model and got incredible performance out of a small parameter open model. They did this with Llama 2. Top of the LLM leaderboards for a while, worth looking at if you're playing in the open model space. But also, you can see it not there right now. All of the top are the Llama 2 derivatives. Interestingly, these powerful Llama models are getting up to 70 in the MMLU here, which is about equivalent to GPT 3.5. I don't think it's too long before we start to see it's commonplace for these models to be spun up and deployed, maybe fine-tuned for a particular niche, and used as an alternative for hitting the OpenAI API, which is where so many projects go these days. Oh, Microsoft. They've come out and announced $30 a user per month is what they're going to charge for the 365 Copilot. Their stock went up 5% in a day. Lots of investors rubbing their hands together thinking about that money. I think this paints a picture of how we're going to see the big players roll out their Copilot. The model of $20 a month for your GitHub Copilot, or 30 for Microsoft, or your OpenAI Plus, etc. It's going to be a bit like the streaming services where you don't need all of them. Instead of a world where you have your 20 agents and you pick the ones you want to use, you're going to have the 2 or 3 that your company pays for that you've got access to. If you want to ditch the Microsoft Copilot, well, they're not going to allow any fair competition for a Word AI Copilot or a Windows AI Copilot. If you want to switch out Microsoft Copilot, you're kind of going to have to ditch your operating system or your word processing system. Same in Google land. This is how I think we're going to see AI Copilots come to most users. StackOverflow have announced an AI as well. It's got integration with Slack, it's integration with VS Code. Instead of going to the StackOverflow website, you ask the chatbot, it gives you answers, it references the things. You can't get access to it yet. You have to go to their labs to do it. They've got a lot of content about their AI plans. But as a company that was built off user-generated content and then trained a model off that user-generated content, they're trying to walk this line of like, well, our community is important to us and our AI is important to us. But you can easily imagine a world where the community gets thrown under the bus. Maybe it has already. As you think about social media platforms or lots of places where user-generated content has been what has created the value, well, if you can have AIs which spit out that content or trained off it, I think you'll start to see some wheels falling off the equilibrium in those spaces. Tellingly, you can register your interest, or you can contact the sales team and sign up all your people that you want and get access early to this sort of thing. If you imagine the Microsofts and the Googles doing their $20, $30 a month, how many companies like Stack Overflow are going to want a piece of that? And I think we're going to see more and more of the not massive tech giants, but the folks below them also launching AIs, also launching Copilots, also integrating it in everywhere, selling it as a productivity tool, trying to do a per user per month fee. Apple have had some leaks about a chatbot they're using internally. It'd be interesting to see if they've got a different take on what has happened between ChatGPT and Bing and Bard and Claude, where they've got differences, but they're also very similar to each other. I wonder if the Apple one will be a fresh take on it, or it will just be more of the same. If they start to line up with the way that Microsoft and everyone else is thinking about rolling this out, I think we'll start to see that become the norm. If they shake it up, who knows what's going to happen. OpenAI, well, they've released custom instructions And this is like a perma prompt where every time you talk to the model, it puts this instruction in front of it, such as never apologize to me, or I messed around with give me random animal facts sometimes, and I turned it off eventually, got annoying. I found that this is a cool feature, but I only use it some of the time. There's not many use cases for me where there's something I want to be true every single time I talk to ChatGPT. If it was every time I'm talking to about coding or every time I'm talking to about education, I'd use it a ton. But as it is, I'm using it a little bit. But I suspect it's only a matter of time before we start to have the ability to quickly change these prompts based off the context we're interacting with them. You may have heard a whole bunch of stuff about ChatGPT getting worse over time. Initially, some users were like, we think it's getting worse. And there were some researchers who were like, here's a paper saying it's getting worse. And OpenAI was like, nah, it's all in your heads. You're just getting used to it and finding edge cases like the sparkles one off the relationship and you're starting to see the reality. Who knows what's going on? It's a black box. We can't really know. But I found this article was a good story about what's been happening. This is a paper that was put out recently, made some waves. They were saying that they've found a whole bunch of exploits in the open and private models where they can get it to do unsafe things like build me a bomb or steal someone's identity. But their main argument was it's not just a once-off exploit that you can patch. We have found a methodology for regenerating these exploits after you have patched them. Maybe it means that open models will be fundamentally uncensorable and you will always be able to jailbreak them to do stuff that is unsafe. If so, I expect we'll see a slowdown in the release of foundational open models, but also it's not a settled matter and people will be trying to make them safe over time. I'll finish up with 3 cool projects. GPT Researcher. It's designed specifically just for a research niche. It can write an outline of research. So this is like a sketch with not much detail. It can do a full piece of smaller research where it starts, introduction and conclusion, and this is what I found and evidence to support my views, etc. And it can also give you a whole bunch of links. So I've evaluated these links. Here's how they line up with your research question. It's pretty good. I've used it a bunch. I'm starting to work it into my, not daily workflow, but maybe my weekly one. You're spending between 20 cents and 50 cents per research run just on the API calls to compute all the things, depending on how you configure it. It's saving me time, but the idea that really hit me with this is there's a whole bunch of websites that I only visit because I have to, and that's the only way I can get the data. If I could get an AI to visit that website for me and get me what I want from it, I would never go there. I would just get the AI to do it, which is what I'm starting to do. Imagine a world where 10%, 20%, 30% of the website traffic is from autonomous agents because people just don't want to go there. What's the impact will that have on the ecosystem? I think it's fairly likely to happen. This is just a first rough tool. It's a fraction of what it could be, but it does hint to me what the world could look like when you start to have a ton of these agents out there doing things. Hey, play with it if you want to be early. MetaGPT was taking this a step further. Instead of having a single agent good at one thing, how do you have agents that are good at lots of things? It uses the metaphor of a software company, and how do you have engineers and product people, etc., collaborating? It achieves more complex tasks like design this whole software system. I really liked in their code they were doing things like start a company, and they've got function names like software company and roles like this, and each of them got different prompts and abilities, have them collaborate to do things. You could totally imagine agents starting to have different write to files, read the web, write some code, make an image sort of abilities, collaborating to do these tasks. It makes me think about a world where it's not just like an AI which does a very narrow thing, but when you take GPT Researcher and put it next to image generator or code writer or data visualization, and they start to collaborate together based off your top level achieve this goal, hey, that starts to look like a very exciting world. Here's another one, ShortGPT. It makes short videos. And the way I'm seeing a lot of these roll out is you download them on GitHub, you run it locally, you interact with a local website, which hits a bunch of APIs and does some things for you. This one will write content. It will start to get B-roll footage. It will edit videos together. It's not just an AI doing a lot of stuff. There's a lot of workflow automation with AI in the mix. As I start to think about a world where there's the Microsoft $30 a month, ditch your word processing if you don't want to use them, or a world where these ones are using AI like a commodity, where you don't want to use OpenAI, use Claude, switch it in. Oh, you don't want to use this service, switch in another one. The power is with the users in this world, which is why I'm so excited and spending so much time on just the open source applications of AI tooling. I think it's just much better for users, more interesting, and also much better for innovation and creating new things which are useful. Because once Microsoft has got everyone using their Copilot, all of the pressure for them to innovate dials back a whole bunch because they're just going to force competitors out rather than having to make their Copilot better. A final note on the open source ones is that The table stakes to use them is knowing how to code a little bit, which is why I'm really interested in just helping more people do that. If you can download something from Git, run it locally, maybe tweak it, change it a little bit if you want to, maybe just use it, a whole world opens up for you, which isn't available if you don't have those skills. It's pretty cheap and easy to get those skills. I've got free memberships online. I have got a small paid membership plan. codewithjv.com if you want to come and learn some coding and play in this exciting world. Links below if you want to sign up for a weekly newsletter. Comments below if you want me to do a deep dive on any of these topics. Hey, take care.